What is up, you beautiful people, and welcome back to another Commander Guide, and this time we are going to be covering Karax, the Phase Smith. So let's get right into it. So, game plan, we are going to talk about Karax's hero abilities, passives, etc. associated specialties. We're going to talk about Karax strategy, we're going to talk about the Karax unit roster, and then we're going to talk about we're not going to talk about gameplay. We're going to show some gameplay. So if you guys are new here, be sure to drop a sub if you guys enjoy these Commander Guides and enjoy Direct Strike content. There's going to be weekly Brawl tier lists every week, and I play weekly Brawl basically every single day. So if you guys have not seen those, be sure to go check out my channel after this video if it is interesting to you. So let's get right to it. So Karax's abilities, Karax has one passive ability and one very powerful active ability. So his passive ability is Reconstruction Beam. Plain and simple, it just restores 10 HP per second to up to 3 of your mechanical units. This can target your defensive buildings, so your photon cannons, your shield battery, and your K-Darn monoliths. And you can upgrade this for 125 minerals to target up to 5 of your units. And really, it just sort of makes your wave a little tankier. Not like overtly tankier, but it's noticeable, especially if you have a very high health unit. Next, your Purifier Beam starts off with the 5-minute initial cooldown, and you can call it down wherever there's vision, and it deals 750 damage over 10.7 seconds, and to just basically anything it touches within like a decently large radius of it, and that's increased to 1,500 damage against armor targets. So it's very powerful, and you want to use this when you want to try and either capture an objective, in this case, take the cannon or take the bunker, or to win the game by like beaming your opponent's wave that is about to intercept like a stacked wave, right? If you beam that down, boom, destroyed, or destroy half of it, or destroy a quarter of it, right? It ensures that your ally's wave that's coming up is going to be able to destroy your opponent's wave, right? Karax is the king of asymmetric attack, and that's how he does it. So Karax defenses, he's actually he has access to some of the most useful defensive structures for most commanders, so he can turtle really nicely in the early game. Karax really isn't an early game commander, but these defenses really help him out. So you got 2 photon cannons, just standard, and then you got a shield battery that's unlocked at tier 2, and it restores shields to any buildings or units that have shields. So shield batteries can heal your own guys if you're fighting on top of your shield battery. It can also heal your bunker, and it can also heal your nexus. So very useful, and it's also got some upgrades you can buy for it. The K-Darn monolith is unlocked at tier 3, and it's a 13 range defensive structures. This means it outranges basically every single siege unit in the game besides, I would say, Nova tanks. And it has the same range as Mengsk tanks, if you get an upgrade for it. And deals very high single target damage. It just deals 100 damage, basically. So the upgrades you can buy for your defensive structures is Optimized Ordnance, which I believe is unlocked at tier 2, and it increases your defensive building's attack speed by 25%. So it's not like too noticeable, but it's very helpful, especially for your K-Darn monolith. Helps you turtle a little bit. Fortification Barrier is also unlocked at tier 2, and it allows your shield battery to place a 100 HP shield on your defensive structures. And I think there's like a 20-second cooldown for when it uses it. So like once it shields one of your structures for 100 HP, you just can't use it again. And pretty useful overall to get. Like these are really cheap upgrades, and really helps Karax adjust for his early game, because his Karax early game just really does not work for him. And then we have Enhanced Targeting, which is unlocked at tier 3, and it makes it so your defensive buildings have +2 range. So your photon cannons will have 9 range, and your K-Darn monoliths will have 15 range. So overall, very useful for helping Karax tank and survive the early game. And it really helps him just be able to build up to where he wants to be in the late game. Because Karax is very much a crusher comp commander. I know it sounds kind of strange, but he is a crusher commander. And I'll show you guys why in a moment. So, the Karax mindset. When you're playing Karax, you want to play around your beam. Your beam is the sole reason why Karax's unit roster is absolutely tiny. If Karax had more flexible units, he would actually be OP as hell. Now, Karax's beam is very powerful, right? You're not really here to win a fair fight. Most commanders are out here trying to win a fair fight, wave on wave action. Karax, you're literally scum, okay? You are scum, okay? You want to drop that beam, annihilate your opponent's wave, and then have your wave clean up whatever scraps are left, and then you want to take that and swing it into a tempo advantage, or not tempo, I guess like a wave advantage, so that you start stacking with your allies, right? And you can do that every 5 minutes, okay? And so basically every 5 minutes, if your opponent is in a bad position, like if Karax is pushing you in, right, you better be ready for that beam. Because if you're not ready for that beam, like you're going to be in for a bad time. Like Karax will probably be able to win the game off of that, right? And so Karax is very much a team player, much more so than other commanders. Like some commanders can just be like, I'll just do my own thing. I don't care. Like I don't have to coordinate with my team. Karax, you have to coordinate with your team. And like ideally, you want to have a teammate that can dominate the air on your team. Because Karax air is okay, but it loses very hard to some certain matchups that go air against him, right? So you have to coordinate with your team when you play Karax. If you play Karax just randomly, especially the more Karaxes you have on your team, the worse things will be, unless it's like a week where you have access to hybrid for the weekly brawl and you can cheese out a win by using like your beam on a hybrid wave, right? But most of the times you want to play around your beam, right? Like Karax has two very, very hard counters that are literally impossible to win, I would say, if they know what they're doing. Kerrigan and Abathur. So Kerrigan and Abathur both have access to empowered Mutalisk that will literally destroy everything Karax has access to, right? So Kerrigan's Mutalisk, I believe they can bounce their attacks up to 6 targets, I think, and they do full damage. And I think Abathur's Mutalisk only bounce their attacks. They still bounce their attacks to 6 targets, but they do bonus damage to armored, right? Both of them are still very powerful because Karax doesn't have any AoE in the air. He doesn't have any AoE that deals with air units at all, right? He only has AoE on the ground. So Kerrigan and Abathur can just spam their Mutalisk and basically annihilate your Mirages. Your Mirages do bonus damage to light units, but because they are only single target, Mutalisk will tear you apart, right? Also, Kerrigan ground is very thick. It's very tough, so it can survive Karax ground if you choose to go ground and just try and ignore the Mutalisk. So you're already screwed that way. And same thing with Abathur. Abathur's ground is very tough as well. Like his roaches can crush your sentinels really easily because they do bonus damage to sentinels because they're light units. And they can stall for long enough that the mutas will clean up, right? They're not going to beat your immortals or they're not going to beat your colossus, but Abathur's mutas will clean house, right? So if you are playing Karax and you face up against Abathur or Kerrigan, you want to try and coordinate with your teammates so that either you get pushed in and then the wave desyncs, and hopefully your teammate has AoE for Mutalisk, or you want to push in and hopefully, same idea, right? You want to make sure the waves are asymmetric, unstack, and then you want to beam. You want to end this game as soon as possible, because after a certain point, you're going to be in trouble because your entire wave is effectively useless against these two guys. Right. There are some other hard matchups for Karax, right? But these are straight up you gotta get creative to beat this, right? Your carriers are gonna get destroyed, right? Especially with Abathur too, right? Kerrigan only has access to Mutalisk, so technically it's not as bad. But Abathur can also go Guardians to destroy whatever ground units you send, right? Abathur's Devours actually lose to your Mirages because they cost so much. But Abathur's Mutalisk, splash in some Mirages, splash in a few Leviathans if you really need to at the end of the game. And Karax just has a very sad time. So yeah, you got to coordinate your team to beat this. So what's the Karax strategy, right? Here, right? Make sure you dump a beam on him. Just beam him, okay? And you win here. But the overall Karax strategy I'm about to present to you guys is very controversial, okay? Some of you guys are probably going to hate me for this. But I want to say you don't want to build Karax air unless the matchup is 100% going to be a winning matchup if you go air. And so what I mean by that is if you're against Han and Horner, if you spam Mirages, I think you can beat Han and Horner hands down if you spam Mirages. I think the only thing that you lose to against Han and Horner if you spam Mirages is Han and Horner's battle cruisers, which you can steal with Energizers, or you lose to the Wraiths, which you can also kind of steal, right? But that's a matchup where you have to go pure Mirages, right? I want to say another matchup that you might be able to do Mirages with is I want to say Alarak. Now, because if Alarak goes Motherships, you're in for a really bad time, because Motherships have high armor. But if you have enough Mirages, you can take down his Motherships. That being said, Alarak does have some baby AoE in the air, and that's kind of terrifying. So that's also a pretty tough matchup. But I feel like Karax air is really more so there to support Karax ground. Okay, so hear me out here. Karax has the best Zealot in the game. Okay, Karax also has I would say probably one of the best immortals, not like the best, but he also has the best Colossus in the game. Like this Colossus, I would like Karax Colossus is better than Warbringer. I would say that it's better than Warbringer. I would say, like Zealots are his reviving tank, right? His immortal is an anti-armor unit with high single target burst, right, with his little blast cannon, and he has AoE siege, right? That's everything you want in a very powerful ground commander, with the exception of the fact that he has nothing that shoots up, right? Karax's critical weakness is that he can't shoot up if he goes pure ground, right? And he also has a siege unit that gets hit by anti-air, right? So the thing is, like, Karax Air is single target. It's got relatively low HP, I would say, and it's weak to high armor, right? You don't want to rely on it as your only strategy, right? It's got decent DPS if you're in a matchup where, like, you know, you have carriers, but I would say it's better to build Colossus than to build carriers. Because if you're building carriers to, like, say, destroy Marines, Colossus do that better. Just from building carriers to destroy Hydras, Colossus do that better, right? The only time you want to build carriers is, like, to add to your air DPS, right? And in that case, you're committed to an air Karax build. Like, I think air Karax is, like, it's strong, but I don't think it's, like, OP, you know? Karax ground, though, I think is straight up insane. Which is why I would recommend a Karax ground, right? But that being said, like, you will have to, at the very end of the day, probably support your ground units with Mirages. And that being said, that's like the overall strategy. I'm going to try and demonstrate it in the gameplay of what I have. That being said, I'm pretty sure I will be missing out on some aspects of Karax Air. I think I sell Karax Air a little too short. I do have that bias, I will admit it, but every commander out there has some form of air AoE, but I think Karax might be the only one who doesn't have that air AoE. And that, I think that is like a pretty critical weakness, which is in Direct Strike is very huge. So that's enough of the strategy. Let's just go and talk about Karax's unit roster. Let's go. So we have in Tier 1 the Sentinel. Karax's Tier 1 is pretty weak. You literally only have access to the Sentinel, and you have an Energizer. So what I recommend is that you basically just plop down 2 Sentinels, and you go to Tier 2 right away, right? You absolutely have to have Tier 2, bare minimum, right? But as Karax, you really want to just tech up to Tier 3, like, right away at the start of the game, so you have access to all of your useful units. Because Karax really only has, like, 1 to 2 useful units every tier. He only has, I think, like 6 units that you really need to build, right? So Sentinels, nice and basic. You got the charge, right? Buy this. Reconstruction, you have to buy it because it basically makes your Zealots revive, and it really messes with your opponent's wave because your Zealots charge and they die, and then your opponent's front line runs forward, and then starts attacking your Immortals or whatever. Zealots revive, and they start attacking your opponent's backline or force the opponent's front line to run backwards, right? Really just messes up with everything, right? You need to have lots of Sentinels if you're going pure ground Karax. If you don't have a lot of Sentinels, you're doing it wrong. Next, we got the Energizer. It can stim your units, increasing their attack speed and movement speed. I think attack speed by 25%, movement speed by 50%. Don't rely on it for DPS. It's got some powerful upgrades that lets you steal enemy mechanical units. So, for example, it's available at Tier 3. It's called Reclamation. It costs 150 energy, so that's basically your entire Energizer energy bar. But you could micro it so that some Energizers don't use Chrono Beam, which is like the stim up ability, which I don't have on a picture here because it's just constantly being used. And so you can use that, and you can use it to target big capital ships or big important units that are mechanical. So usually very useful against Terran commanders, very useful against Protoss commanders. Not that great against Zerg commanders because most Zerg commanders don't have anything mechanical except for Stetman and Stukov, actually. But yeah, you can just take them temporarily, right? They don't last forever, right? They go back to your opponent. So make sure, like, you just want to make sure that this is part of your asymmetric attack strategy. Like, they come in, you steal some of their units, right? Use that DPS that you've just added to your wave to destroy the stuff. And then when they return to your opponents, you still have, like, your whole fat wave on top of them. And then you should just hopefully blow them up, right? If you cannot do that, then what you're effectively doing is you're saving those units for your opponent. And that is very bad because you're helping your opponent stack. So only get this if you know that you can take your opponent's stuff and then be able to destroy them all after you've destroyed their wave, right? Because otherwise, like, you're just saving it for later. And that's really bad, right? And we also have rapid recharging, which is an upgrade that benefits your energizers and your shield battery. So they regenerate energy 50% faster. This is like, it's a powerful upgrade, I feel, but I also feel like you don't really see it in action, so it's hard to gauge how strong it is. But generally, if you're buying like a handful of energizers, you should get it. Energizers, you don't really need to spam too many of them, in my own opinion. Like I think like unless you're seeing like lots of like enemy air units, like big air units that you can take over, energizers generally you don't really need more than like 3 or 4. Right? If you're encountering a lot of mechanical units, you can definitely do an energizer cheese and just like steal everything. But yeah. Next, we have Tier 2. We have Karax's Tier 2. Grants some access to some very useful units. You got the Observer, which I'm not going to talk about because it's just an Observer. You know, it's detection, you know. So we have Annihilators and we have Mirages. So Annihilators are 275 minerals, quite expensive for an Immortal, but it makes up for that with the Shadow Cannon ability, which makes it do 200 damage to a single target, right? 200 damage usually kills most medium-sized units. Something like Roaches will die to it, Zealots will die to it. Unfortunately, Legionaries are too tanky for that. And it will severely injure most other units that you will want to shoot at, so like Ares bots, I don't know, Hellbats, enemy Immortals, right? Severely injure. Won't kill, but it gives you an initial wave contact advantage right away. You have to buy Shadow Cannon, right? And from my experience, you don't really have to micro Shadow Cannon unless like you're trying to micro it to take out Dahaka or something. But because for the most part, the Annihilators will shoot units that have 200 HP or more. So they'll try to maximize the damage. They won't Shadow Cannon Zerglings. So the AI is good like that. You really have to spam Annihilators if you're against Tychus. But if you're against Tychus, you're probably already dead too. Because it's actually one of the matchups that Karax, I don't think Karax can actually win. But yeah, let's keep going on with that. So we also have the Mirage. It's your only real anti-air unit. Like, carriers aren't really anti-air in the sense that, like, they're expensive, so you can't spam them, and, like, they usually get melted by enemy anti-air. Mirages are pretty strong overall, don't get me wrong, they're pretty good, but they're really weak to splash, and any unit that has high armor. So anything, like, because at max weapon upgrades, they only do 10 damage times 2, which is pretty good, right? But if your opponent has anything with more than like 4 armor or 5 armor, you're already starting to like lose a lot of DPS. If your opponent has something that has 5 armor in the skies, your effective Mirage DPS has been cut in half. If they have 6 armor, it goes down to like 8 damage in total, which means your DPS has been reduced to like, I think like 40%, like 8 over 20. That's like what, like, yeah, 40%. Your DPS has been reduced to 40%. So basically, battle cruisers will completely dumpster you because they have 6 armor, right? Anything with more than 6 armor, I don't think anything that flies has more than 6 armor. But like, say like an Apocalypse, because like, actually no, you can't hit an Apocalypse. Ignore that. But like, basically what I'm saying is like, high armor targets are going to really mess you up. That being said, Mirages are really powerful if you have lots of them. So if you are going to build Mirages, you have to hard commit, right? Don't buy 2, don't buy 3, right? If you're buying Mirages, you better have at least 20, okay? Or else you're doing it wrong, okay? Phasing Armor is an upgrade that you have to get. It's available at Tier 2, and it makes it so that your Mirages basically are invulnerable for 1.4 seconds if it takes damage, right? Every 5 seconds. So it really is instrumental in keeping your Mirages alive. If you're going pure Mirages, make sure you buy this, right? Mirages are strong enough to beat out Deimos Vikings, I think. I've seen some cases where it's happened. I've seen some cases where it hasn't happened, but I'm pretty sure. Like, I don't know. I remember getting bullied by Karax Mirages as Han and Horror, so I was surprised by that. But yeah, Anion Pulse Crystals are available at Tier 3, and it just makes it so your Mirages get +2 range. You really don't need to get this if you're trying to get your Mirages to tank for your carriers, because then if you get this, they will have basically the same attack range as your carriers, and so that makes it so the carriers will also get hit by AoE, which you don't want. But if you're going pure Mirages, just grabbing Anion Pulse Crystals is pretty useful. Next, your Tier 3. Tier 3 gives you access to Karax's most powerful unit. I want to say unit, not units, because I'll talk about the carrier later. You have the Purifier Colossus, which is hands down the best Colossus in the game, because every time it auto-attacks, it leaves a trail of fire on the ground. If you buy the upgrade, the Fire Beam upgrade, all right, you have to buy the Fire Beam upgrade. If you're not buying the Fire Beam upgrade, don't even buy a Colossus, right? Now, the thing is, you don't want to have too many Colossus, because having too many Colossus is actually diminishing returns. Ideally, you don't want to have more than 2 or 3 Colossus. You want to have most of your ground Crusher Wave to be mostly Sentinels and mostly Immortals. Your Colossus is really only there to set the ground on fire to help you deal with like low HP units, that like units with like 50 HP to like 150 HP. Because the thing is, these guys can get hit by anti-air weapons, and if you buy too many of them, you're going to be really sad when your opponent sends out Vikings or Liberators or whatever's, that your Colossus can't hit. And you know what that also means? It means you have to buy Mirages to try and protect them. And what that also means is you're going to be sucked into an air battle, which you probably won't be able to win because you didn't start off with Mirages in the first place, right? If you want to do an air battle as Karax, you have to commit right at the get-go. Otherwise, I don't think you'll ever be able to like beat out your opponents. And so yeah, the Colossus, try not to have too many of them because like the fire on the ground doesn't stack as well. Like it's just like, you know, they'll just spawn more fire, but the extra fire doesn't increase the DPS that the fire does. It just makes it so that your units, when they walk over it, there's more fire to walk over, right? So not really that great. But you definitely need this unit to support your ground units. And you definitely don't need too many of them because they're also very expensive. They're 450 minerals. Okay. Next, we have the support carrier. So the support carrier, in my opinion, is just the medic with 450 HP and 2 pistols. Now I say this because the support carrier, yes, it has high DPS potential. Yes, it can be really tanky and it repairs itself, right? And am I saying this is an absolutely terrible unit? Not quite. Right? It's a decent unit in some matchups, but for most of the times, if you were deciding to buy a support carrier, which is 450 minerals, or a Colossus for 450 minerals, right? If you're trying to hit a ground unit, just go for the Colossus. Don't even buy the carrier. The carrier is really only what you would get if it's like an air battle situation. And it's great at cleaning up like low HP air units, right? But it's terrible, absolutely horrendous into any air unit that has more than 4 armor. Because at base value, the carrier does 5 damage. And at max weapons, it does 8 damage. You can see where I'm going with this, right? Your Mirages get countered by high armor air, and so do your carriers. And that's just the feels bad, man. Because, like, your carriers get up to 8 damage, and they shoot twice. Yeah, sure, they shoot twice, right? But, like, if someone has 6 armor, your carrier does 2 damage to them twice. For a total of 4 damage. Wow! Right? So yeah, like battle cruisers like Han and Horner BCs, boom, absolutely dumpster you. Which is where the Energizer comes in, right? You can steal them, right? But the only issue is that you know, you still have to kill it after. So, you know, but yeah, there's some upgrades you can buy for your carriers. You can buy the repair drones. I'm not against like getting a few carriers in like the late game because like they can really help heal up your ground units, including it heals itself and it heals allied mechanical units as well. But I really don't think the carrier is worth it, especially because they made it more expensive. You have the Graviton Catapult, which makes the carriers attack faster, which is like, you know, a nice DPS buff. But like, I don't know. I have huge doubts about carriers. So yeah, bear with me, guys. And yeah, let's go on to some gameplay. Bam! All right, and we're back. Let's get right to it. So I've loaded up into a nice little normal game here. I'm just gonna. My mouse is having some difficulties with the scroll wheel. So I'm just gonna go to tier 2 here. We got a Swan on our team. That's useful. Swan and Karax could be nice buddies here. So I would like to put my cannons down here. Unfortunately, Swan put his missile turret here. I would have put my shield battery in this position, but you know, sometimes you just gotta live with these things. So yeah, I'm gonna go tier 2 right away. I have a Swan on my team and I have a Dahaka. Okay, I think that should be fine. So, right, you want to get your Sentinels out here. I like to do a nice little V shape setup here. I'll show you guys in a moment what I mean. But basically, I want to make a V like this. So this way and this way. And then in the center, like, I mean, at the outskirts of the V is going to be my Sentinels. Because I want to have my Sentinels charging in a cascading manner. So they don't all just run at the same time and die. I want them to run in one after another sort of thing. So that they revive one after another, right? That's the whole purpose of it, right? Or you could just do multiple lines or like multiple layers, right? But it looks like, I hope to God, those are not Abathurs. Oh, I'm against a Protoss commander. Okay, I'm gonna get my stuff over here. I'm gonna auto gas the second gas, and then I'm just gonna chill because you know, you don't really want to get third gas too early, but you will have to get it at some point. Yeah, I got my Sentinels out here. And let's see what sort of matchup it is. If it's a Karax mirror, I think I have to go air, which is gonna be unfortunate. But yeah. Playing like normally, I think it's only really worth it to get your weapon upgrades. I never really buy my shield upgrades. Probably should buy it more often. But yeah, we'll have to see. I'm just going to stick with 3 Sentinels here. 3 Sentinels is really all you need. You don't really need more right now. But ideally, if it is going to be a ground matchup here, we are going to push for some Annihilators. Ooh, that's gonna hurt. That's a Gary in the first position here. Oh no, that's Gary in the second position. So Swan's into Gary. Oh, that's gonna be tough. Okay, well I'm gonna see what I'm against here. But yeah, Like I think Karax ground is just honestly really insanely strong, and I'm just gonna see if I can showcase that this game. Hopefully I can, right? But you know, more often than not, like, cause I meme a lot in my tier listing, Karax is D tier and whatnot, because I think in like a square like fight, like you know, your units versus your opponent's units, Karax actually just has difficulty keeping up. Oh, it's Phoenixes. Okay. Well, you know, here's the thing. Phoenixes, unfortunately, are just inferior Mirages. Now, however, if I do fight Artanis, he is going to have access to the Archon. So, my Mirages are only going to be here for just to take on our opponents. And that's about it. I'm going to scan to make sure he still has it. Oh, he has the Archons now. He has the Archons now. He has the Archons now. I'm just going to go pure ground and force him to acknowledge my ground superiority, basically. I'm just going to go pure ground here. I'm going to commit hard. Because the Archons are... He's probably trying to bait me. It's actually just a good idea to just spend your minerals here. Yeah, so... If I go for a pure ground battle, I can definitely outmuscle Artanis ground. Like, I know I said Artanis' Crusher ground is pretty strong, but I think Karax's Crusher ground is able to contend here. Are my... Oh, because they're low HP. Okay, that's why. Yeah, so you want to have like a nice little arc here, like a little V shape, because you want to make sure your Archons are your Immortals are shooting in a cascading pattern as well. Now, am I gonna have to deal with those Phoenixes? I will. Have to deal with those Phoenixes. But what am I gonna do with them? Probably have to do some Mirages into them. So yeah, but the thing is, like, hopefully the Phoenixes pick up the Sentinels. And in picking up the Sentinels, they end up, you know, memeing themselves, because the Sentinels just revive again, so it's like, congratulations, you played yourself, right? But I will have to have some Mirages at the end of the day to back up your ground comp, right? It's not ideal, but you gotta. Like, against Artanis, you can definitely beat Artanis' Mirages. I mean, Artanis' Phoenixes, because your Mirages have the advantage of being able to not take damage. That being said, Artanis looks like he is not building more Archons. I mean, he's not building any more Airs, so I'm just gonna have 2 Mirages here for now. Let's see. Are my Archons really not gonna blast? Okay, I guess not. Well, I guess not. Well, so perfect. This is perfect, because we're against Abathur here. I think I have the opportunity to go tech up here. Now the question is, do I beam here? I could. I think I should beam on the Gary Wave, because the Gary Wave is the one that's gonna... Oh no, but the Gary Wave is mostly Banelings. Alright, well, we'll just have to wait and see here. Ideally, you want to beam, like, early-ish, so you can have it up again. Yeah, but it's, like, mostly Banelings. Like, I don't know if it's worth beaming here. I can beam Gary. I guess it's not really a great beam, but, you know, better than nothing. I should have beamed the Artanis Wave, I think. Yeah, I should have beamed the Artanis Wave. That was a bad beam, don't worry about it. I got another beam. Yeah, it's a wasted beam there. There we go. Here we go, boys. But we're gonna be able to beat up his Archons here. The only thing is that if he starts getting Reavers, though, I'm gonna have to be a little scared. But yeah, like, I can lift up his Immortal here. Boom, boom, boom. Just CC it here. Boom, boom, boom. Now, what I really want to do is I really want to get my hands on some Purifier Colossus right now. But yeah, I hope this is going to be a good showcase of how strong Karax ground is. But yeah, I'm glad that Artanis decided to oblige me in a ground fight. Because I guess he didn't scan me, and he just assumed that I was going to not sell my guys. So you want to have your Colossus kind of pretty close to your front line, but like you just want to build like this sort of V shape, and just go all the way back. V shape all the way back. Just throw it back. Also got to make sure you have your extended thermal lance at the very least, because if you don't have extended thermal lance, you're doing it wrong. And here I'm about to enter a fight without extended thermal lance. But yeah, you can actually vaporize your way through Artanis' ground wave here, thanks to Fire Beam. Oh, it's over 4 seconds. I think in the video I said it's over 7 seconds. So this is actually a lot higher DPS than I thought it was. Okay, whatever. It's okay. Now we know. But yeah, there we go. The Fire Beam is also great against structures as well. And there we go. I should be able to tear into Abathur's wave decently as well. Like, look at it. Look at it. I'm tearing through his roaches. You see that? You see that? Like, Karax ground is monstrous. If Karax had access to, like AoE in the air, or some form of, like, ground unit that shoots up, it would actually be insane. That helped my Dahaka ally win the game. Like, all it took was that one Colossus, guys. You don't need more than one Colossus. Like, trust me on this one. Because the more Colossus you get, the more vulnerable you become to enemy air, and you have to build air units, which is unideal because you want to have lots of them. Like Karax is a very small roster, and it's a very simple roster, right? You don't really need like you can crush Artanis' units here, and Artanis is famous for being a crusher comp already. What Artanis can do here is buy zealots against you, which is okay, but at the end of the day, like look, his immortals just get shot up immediately by your annihilators, and I guess my mirages here. Yeah, look at that, incinerated, boom. I'm gonna get the gas here because I'm gonna get that building here, and look, since we're pushing in, it basically means that our beam is gonna threaten to win the game. I was about to say threaten lethal, because if you're playing Hearthstone or whatever. But yeah, like this one Colossus here is insane. I haven't even upgraded its weapons yet, right? And the thing is, like, it probably won't report that it's got a lot of kills, right? But the thing is, like, oh wait, now is a good time to buy an Energizer if I can find it. There we go. Because the Energizer will stim the attack speed of all your units, basically, which is great. I think it stims it for... Oh, it stimmed the beam? That's insane. Anyways, Artanis here is using a shield here. My scroll wheel is broken, so we're scrolling in a little closer. I'm gonna pick ground weapons here. And the thing is, Abathur could easily, like, mess me up here. Is he going to, though? Probably not. Now, let's see. So my Sentinels are dead, and now they're reviving, and they're reviving in waves. You see that? They're reviving in waves. You really don't want to have any aggro on your backline, and that's the reason why your Sentinels are here. Like, this is a perfect showcase of how strong Karax round can be. Now, I'm really worried if Artanis decides to go Tempest, though, because I don't think I can actually beat his Tempest in any manner, because I have to build a lot of Mirages. Now, like, this one Colossus here is doing work on this side, right? I can probably buy a second one, but I'm probably not going to.
Sounds like a plan.
Mostly because I want to make sure that I have more frontline, right? You guys can obviously take this build and modify it however you want, but I've seen a Karax build like 6 or 7 Colossus. The only issue with that is like he becomes super vulnerable to enemy air units, right? Like anything that hits air is gonna be so good against you, and you don't want to set yourself up for that, because if you set yourself up for that, you're setting yourself up for failure. Okay, so Artanis here has some Mirages here, which just instantly get annihilated by Swan, so we don't have to worry about that. Boom, boom, boom. I'm not even gonna buy like phasing armor, but I really don't feel like I need to. He has an... Oh man, he reduced the energy of my Energizer to nothing, which I guess is whatever, I guess, I don't know. I'm gonna get some more weapon upgrades here. I think I can beam... Oh, I can beam soon. Let's see. Like my Zealots here are reviving, my Immortals here. Okay, I'm gonna drop a beam here. Boom, boom, boom. Like the beam requires vision though, it's not exactly too smart. So hopefully we can beam up some of these Zerglings here, beam up some of those things here. This Colossus is still going, and it's dead. Oh my god, there's a Super Gary for us to deal with here. That was a pretty bad beam, I would say. It's better than last time, it's still not that great. I'm gonna put down another one of these guys here. There we go. I mean, Swan should be able to take our most air for us here, so that's pretty good. He's trying to transition to Phoenixes, which aren't that great against the Goliaths. So I think Swan has our back here. So this is what I mean by like working with their teammates. Like just, Swan has our back here. Boom, 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 boom. But yeah, like look at that. And if Abathur transitions to Mutalisk, I think we should be able to crush him. We're not going to crush him, but our allies are going to crush him, So yeah, I think I need... Okay, so I've cut through most of these guys here, but I think I need probably another Colossus. Yeah, I need another Colossus here, so I'm going to get another one here. I'm going to put them in like a little V shape here. Like, see, this one Colossus has 47 kills. Pretty good. And you really want to make sure that you have basically as many Sentinels as you have spaces for your guys here. So I want to have another Sentinel here. Ideally, you want to have like probably like 2 layers of Sentinels or even more. Even more, could be better. But yeah, I could probably buy some armor upgrades here at some point. But am I going to? Maybe not. Probably not. I don't know. Yeah, so most of Artanis' Phoenixes are worthless here. If Artanis went Tempest against me, or if he went Reavers, I might be a little worried, because I don't think I can deal with Tempest unless I build lots and lots of Mirages. So if you're like, the thing is, right, Karax is not very versatile, so if you're against a Karax, you just want to force him to go in the air, especially if you're a commander with decent air. Because if you force him into the air, he might not have a good time against you. But you can see here, 2 Colossus. The effect of 1 more Colossus is huge, right? It's huge. I was kind of losing this way, right? But now I just completely demolished it, right? You don't want to have any more than 3, I would say. Unless the game goes on for a very long time, but then yeah, you know, keep buying more. But like if a game like goes on for around this amount of time, you don't really need more Colossus than what you have right now. Like 2 or 3 Colossus can hard carry you for a lifetime, basically. At this point, I think I'm gonna go for another gas here. Actually, I don't know, because my beam's coming up. Nah, you know it's always good to gas. It's like security. Okay, he's got a Reaver. Reavers are going to be problematic for us, especially because it's also going to be able to be very good against Spawn as well, which I don't like. But I think he needs to hit critical massive Reavers before things get bad. And that being said, I can always buy more Sentinels. My Colossus with Stim are insane, by the way. Just stimming them, that's why you always get an Energizer, because the Stim is very useful. I think I need more Sentinels though, because we're kind of losing. We got some Devourers here now, so that's kind of bad. Yeah, so this is why, like, if I had more Colossus, these Devourers would take a chunk out of my army, and that would suck, right? But here's the thing, right? Devourers are only hitting my Colossus, which I don't really have to care about, because, yeah, that kind of sucks, but guess what Devourers can't hit? They can't hit my Annihilators, right? My Annihilators, look at that. This guy's a champ. He's at 34 kills, 20 kills, right? These guys are the real muscle behind my ground units, right? The real muscle behind my single target ground, right? Obviously, against my, you know, full, like, small units, my Colossus are the champs, right? But here, right now, it's definitely, the day belongs to, I'm gonna get my facing armor. The day belongs to, my Colossus here, right? My Mirages should be able to beat his Phoenixes, even though I'm outnumbered thanks to phasing armor. Yeah, there it is. Boom, boom, boom. Do I have a beam up soon? I almost have a beam up. So, as you can see, I haven't even had to upgrade these defensive structures because I haven't been pushed in. Abathur has 3 Devourers now, but the thing is, right? 3 Devourers, yeah, it's tearing apart my Colossus, but guess what? More Immortals. More Immortals, boys. Like, the Karax ground comp is literally, like the most biggest Chad energy comp ever. You just have to walk past your opponents and be like, yeah, dude, you have your air units, I'm just gonna keep walking. That being said, though, your team has to coordinate with you. It'd be best if there's teamwork here. It'd be ideal if there's teamwork. But you know what? The beam makes the teamwork work, you know? The beam work makes the dream work. That was terrible. I'm not getting my shields here. Boom, boom. I'm gonna beam Abathur's wave here, ideally. Because Artanis' wave here is just getting chopped to pieces. Put the beam down. There's a bit of a delay here, but the beam here should be able to just cut all these things to pieces here. I'm not going to cut the Devourers to pieces, unfortunately, but guess what? Look at that. That's how you win the asymmetric battles, Karax. And then you get onto their Nexus, and your Immortals, guess what? Your Immortals are building slaying gods. And that is how you win as Karax, boys. You see? You don't need to build any air units as Karax, boys. The only air units I built this game are these 2 Mirages, and they did absolutely nothing for me besides, like, distract my opponent for half a second, right? And I'm telling you guys, Karax ground is absolutely insane. If he had an AoE air unit, Karax would actually be broken. Like, look at this damage dealt. 100k. 100k, boys. Right? Like, I know I always sell Karax short. Like, look at that damage, dude. 53k mineral value killed. Insane. Like, I always sell Karax short, right? And there's a good reason for that. Because if Artanis went Tempest, I would be like, oh my god, I have to build Mirages, right? Like, you can easily play around Karax by going a capital air unit that you have to figure out how to do it. Because here's the thing, if Artanis went Tempest, or just went Phoenix Archon, I would be in trouble, because Phoenixes can fight my Mirages, yes, they're gonna lose, but the Archons will AoE my guys down, right? And in this case, I'll be like, okay, well, what can I do here? Well, I can buy lots of Sentinels and distract his Phoenixes, but then I'm kind of screwed because my Sentinels aren't really my damage output. It's my Annihilators, right? My Annihilators can probably annihilate his Phoenixes, probably, but like he can build 2 Phoenixes for every Annihilator I have, right? So at the end of the day, not going to work out, right? Like Karax, you can easily play around him, but if you play into him, especially into ground Karax will absolutely demolish you. So against Karax, just make sure you're smart and outwit him. Don't play into this ground comp, if you can help it, build air. Because Karax is not the strongest in the air. He can fight, but he won't demolish you, like what happened here. That's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this game, be sure to leave a like. If you guys enjoyed this guide, be sure to leave a like. And be sure to tell me in the comment section down below how the Karax air works. Because you know what? I think this has mostly been a guide dedicated to Karax ground. And I'm very skeptical about Karax air because I would say it has more bad matchups than it has good, right? Yes, it'll win. I'm not saying it's completely useless, but there are more situations where you might be caught with your pants down than there are situations where you're catching them with their pants down. But if you go Karax ground, you're 100% going to catch your opponents with their pants down. So yeah, until next time, I'll see you guys.